Francois, how you doing?
Hey, Tim. Good to see you.
Absolutely. It's been an exciting couple of months. I think we've been talking about quite a few things, but now I'm really excited to have you on the channel today. I think you reached out to me, I think it was now 3 months ago. And I reached out to you. Let's correct the facts. I felt
Yes.
guilty that we hadn't had a chance to talk whilst you were at Tableau and I was on the channel. And I thought, to hell with it. Let's talk about what you're doing now. And you reached back to me and said, "Hey, I've got a better idea. Let's talk about something different." I was like, "Okay, interesting." And then you chased me because I was pretty bad at being, let's say, prompt, and you held me accountable. And then, yeah, one thing led to another, and today you're here to talk about something pretty exciting.
Thank you. It's exciting. I've been watching your channel since you started, and obviously I've known you for a long time. And you always have a way of getting to the core of the issue, seeing things the way others maybe don't see it.
Right.
And the opportunity to just talk about what we're seeing in the market, how there's new opportunities out there, I think is exciting. And
Absolutely.
so I'm really delighted to be on the channel for the first time with just Tim.
You got it right. I think you are the first guest and video I have recorded since that announcement. So that you obviously contextually, I don't know how the timings work with these launches, but yeah, that's pretty wild. I'm glad you reminded me of that because it never occurred to me just sitting here. So I really appreciate that. Yeah. So I guess it might help for you maybe to describe what golden analytics is, if that makes sense.
What is golden analytics? That's a good question.
What is it?
Maybe first for the audience, I don't know if everybody knows who I am and what I've been, but I've been in the data space for 30 years. I started my career at Cognos, you call it the first generation of BI, and I fell in love with data. I fell in love with the power of data. And I got to continue that at Microsoft and the SQL Server team and the Office team. And then I found this little company in Seattle called Tableau, which nobody knew who Tableau was in the day. And it was just an incredible journey to be part of this little startup that changed an industry and created a movement. And I was there for 13 years, truly remarkable times. I then went to a company called Amplitude, which is really focused on helping people build better products using data. Again, just another application of data. And when I finished my time at Amplitude, I started thinking about what was next. And I was retooling myself with AI tools, using Cursor, using Cloud Code. And I got inspired. I saw how these tools are giving people this opportunity to be 10x, 100x better at what they were doing. It's not replacing developers, it was empowering developers. And I was like, oh, what is the equivalent for data? Is there a Cursor? Is there a Cloud Code for data? And the answer was no. And I was frustrated with the state of our industry. I got frustrated that a lot of the tools that we know and love were trying to bolt on AI, and it felt more like a marketing gimmick than truly transformational. So I started thinking, what would it look like if you built, call it a Cursor for data, but a solution that uses the AI in a native way that empowers people, not replaces people, but empowers people to do their best work, to be 10x, 100x better, right? Because they have these capabilities. And so I started building, I started tinkering away, and all of a sudden the light bulb came up. And that was the genesis of Golden, or Golden Analytics is the official name. But it was actually a step even further. You could use AI to automate analysis, but what if you could also add a Canva for data? And I put it in quotes just to create an illustration. But the idea that a lot of the time that you spend in the tools that you use today is actually spent formatting the data, presenting it in a certain way. That's not the deep analysis work. It's beautiful. It's important to communicate. But what if you could make that simple as well?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you start having the brains of tools like Tableau, the beauty of a Canva, and then the empowerment of a Cursor or Claude all combined together. And that's Golden.
It's a nice play on words as well.
Yes, it is.
Did you practice that one? Love it. Love it.
I have so many golden puns. It's not even funny anymore. My team hates me. And now, time for the golden hour. And you get a golden ticket.
Oh, no end. No end.
No end.
It's amazing. I will say I love the nod to a gesture that you've always done at past conferences, and that's carried through to the logo. So I personally wanted to call that out because I felt like that was a very nice touch from you, because obviously, yeah, it's your little project and it's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think of this as, I want it to be a gift to the community.
Right.
I want this to be a place where the community feels like this is a solution for them, empowers them, unleashes them, and brings us back to the height of the data community that we know and love.
Yeah.
And when I always do these, it's like, it's rock on. It's for us. Like, yes, data is fun and we're going to have fun with it.
Yeah, amazing. I know typically when I do these videos, I go into a bit more context and background, but I think for this video, we should look at the product and then we can talk a lot more freely about the challenges, the thinking, and where you're going. So yeah, over to you to show us the product.
All right, let's see it in action. So here we are in Golden. And with every data tool, you have to start with data. So obviously you can connect to files, CSVs, Parquet files, etc. You can connect to data in your Google Sheets. We can connect live to your cloud data warehouses that are out there. We have saved data sets. We even have samples, because everybody needs a good sample. So I thought for today, we'd use something that a lot of people in the community are probably very familiar with. And that is a data set from a fictional store called Superstore. You've heard of it before, Tim?
Yeah, I think I have, just a few hundred times. Yeah.
So we'll just use Superstore so we're all familiar with it. But the first thing that happens in Golden is you don't end up in a blank canvas. You end up in what I call the Discover page. This helps you understand your data. What is this data about? So you can use Superstore to analyze sales performance by customer segment. Great, it's helpful. I found that over the years, most people are intimidated by data. They don't know what questions to ask. So we put the questions right here front and center. So you can see, I can ask questions about profitability and discount correlation, regional sales performance trends, product category. Like, that's really helpful. And at every point, I could go and create that dashboard. We also provide quick insights right out the bat. You don't have to do any work, and we pull out some insights for you to be aware of. For instance, did you know that office supplies in Superstore leads with 60% of the records? That's interesting. The corporate segment account is 30% of the orders, right? You don't have to do work. We're doing it for you to help you figure out and where to focus. And of course, we give you suggested visualizations, different ways that you can visualize that data. Really simple. On the right-hand side, you can see your data profile. So we have 9 dimensions, 5 measures, 2 dates, and 5 geographic fields. So really quickly, you're oriented on that data. Now, in this case, let's say we love these suggested visualizations. We can select them, we can go analyze them, but in my case, I'm going to go create that dashboard. Boom, dashboard created. That's it, fully interactive. I can engage with it. If it's not exactly what I wanted, maybe I could say add category to sales trend. And so I'll type that in. And now the agent just added that in. Great. I didn't have to figure out how to use the interface. But of course, if you want to modify it yourself, you're in control. One of the core principles that I came up with this product is what I call a slider of autonomy, which means that you can dial up or down the amount of AI that's available to you. It's always there in every screen at every step of the way, but it's there to help you. But if you don't like what the AI did, you can change it. If you want to do it all manually, where you want to go ahead and create your own chart, you can just do that as well. You are always in control. Now, not only that, we've also brought in AI across the experience. So let me walk you through what that means. Through the product, we started in Discover, right? So here you discover the data, but there's the 3 core jobs to be done. You prepare your data, you analyze your data, and you communicate the data. Pretty simple. We're all data people, and this is what we do all the time. So the way that this interface is designed is you always have a canvas in the middle, and then you have an agent on the side that's there to help you. But when we talk about the slider of autonomy concept, it means that you're always in control. You can choose to maybe change standard class to just Tim. Boom, you're done. Okay. If I wanted to make this uppercase, I can manually do that. Amazing. Of course, I could ask the agent to do that, but it's a lot faster to just do it yourself. Now, every time you do an operation, we keep track of that operation. So you always have that confidence. Oh, we went from standard class to just Tim, and I could go back and back. It's almost like having a time machine for your data. So you're able to flow in the data and help things move forward, but you always have that visibility. Now, if we go a little bit further, maybe I have here this field that has customer name. I'd love to have first and last name. What's the calculation for that? I don't know. I can just say split into first and last. And now this is an example of where the AI is built in at every step. It knows that this is a name, and it suggests how to go clean that up.
Amazing.
Easy.
Yeah.
I didn't have to learn a calculation. I didn't have to learn anything. It just did it for me. But we can go further. So let's say we have state and province over here, and I want to enrich it. I'd love to get additional data that wasn't in the initial data set. For instance, can I get the state capital of that state or the population? Let's do that because we want to normalize by population.
Yeah.
We'll now use our APIs and go to the internet, pull down the data, and sometimes it doesn't get it quite right. But you get the idea of being able to bring these things together.
Yeah.
So that's the example. Of course, you can also go in and you see your data dictionary. This is where you can go make all of your changes, clean this up and say, this is an order, right? Everything is available a click away.
Yeah.
So that's the core analysis, the data prep side. Obviously, the agent can do a lot of different things. One of my favorite little parts of the agent, for instance, is suggesting new fields to use. When you click on that, it looks at your data set and says, oh, you might want to create a profit margin one, or days to ship, or discount impact, or net sales.
Yeah.
Done. And now it's just added to the data model. Really simple. Now let's move over to analyze. This is an area where I was playing a lot with places where every time I saw somebody doing hacks in Tableau or Power BI or Looker, that told me the software was failing and we could do
right. Yes.
So the experience here starts with, obviously, you can type in what you want. You can double click what you want. And it comes up. I can go in and change and look at sales. It's just really simple. At every step of the way, you'll see that we have next best actions for the analyst.
Yeah.
So it says, based on what we know, you might want to break this down by category. Well, that's a good idea. Great. Done. Now, remember in the prep flow, we had our agent here on the side. Well, it's also keeping track of all the steps you did. So you can always go back in time, and you can also see visually how things progressed in your analysis.
Yeah.
So you can really understand how you evolved.
That's amazing.
And if this is something I like, I can actually create a pin. Think of this as a bookmark, an interesting view. And I can reuse that later on.
Right.
Now, in this scenario, we've got a lot of different things that are available. Obviously, you have the different chart types that are available. Yeah. You know, this is an example where if you want to create a lollipop chart, you've seen all the blog posts on how to do that. That seems like a lot of work. Why not just make it available out of the box? Really simple. And it's just right there at your disposal. Or here's another kind of interesting one. Maybe I'm looking at a scatter plot like this, and we'll put profit and sales. Boom. And here, let's add something with a little bit more detail. Subcategory. Great. I'd love to create one of these amazing magic quadrants where you have each quadrant with different colors. How do you do that? That's a lot of work normally. But in our case, what we can do is we have this handy Command K function that shows you all the features in the product. And I could go and say, can you turn on quadrant mode? Boom. We have our quadrant.
Amazing. Okay.
Just like
it does that for you, right?
And it does it all for you. And so it's exposing the things that are in the product, but we make it really simple. There's other examples like that, creating a Sankey, a KPI. This is actually a really nice one as well. I'm going to look at my KPI of sales by order date. Boom.
Nice.
We're done.
Simple.
Super simple. Maybe I want to do a waterfall analysis. All right, let's look at it by ship mode. Boom. Super simple.
Nice.
Right? These are just examples of different ways that you can visualize the data, but you'll notice that you're in the flow at all times instead of trying to figure out what calculations to put together.
Yeah.
And then on the left-hand side, obviously, if you don't know where to go, the agent is there to help you and say, here are different analyses you could do to help you get started. You're bootstrapping.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Let's go to now communicating the data. Now, in communicating the data, I use the word communicate expressively because you could communicate as a dashboard, maybe in the future as documents or stories, or lots of different ways. But what you see here is obviously you can create a dashboard manually, but you have now these suggested dashboards based on your data. Here's e-commerce sales overview, and it gives you essentially the prompt that the system is going to use to lay out and put the things together. And maybe I'll say, make me sound like a pirate.
That's the classic.
Why not?
Prompt.
Why not? So now the AI is going to go in and take what you've put together and start putting in the various details, creates the map, lays it out in different ways, right?
Gold by territory. Yeah, of course.
And it also suggests different ways to put together stories that are more than just dashboards. They're ways of communicating what's possible. Boom, lays it all out, addresses it, and off you go.
It's more of a report in this one. It's just a sort of top level summary as you read down more detail.
Correct. And if something you don't want, just get rid of it.
Just delete it. Yeah.
And you can go add maybe that pin that we saw earlier that we thought was interesting.
Nice.
It's added right there. So what you've seen in all this is the way that we're putting the power back into the hands of the analysts, putting the power back into the data people's hands, but making it really simple. Yeah. It's point and click, but it's also AI enabled. And I know, Tim, there's always the question of what about chat? Can't I just talk with my data? Of course, you can chat with your data, but it's integrated into the flow. So if I say, show me sales by month, right? Of course, it'll give me the answer, but we give you also the context. Like, did we get it right? What do you mean by month? Oh, did we mean ship date? And it starts learning over time. Break it down by category. It knows the previous question and highlights that in here. Boom, there it is. Yeah. And this is pretty tight. So let's go side by side view. It's a little bit easier.
So you can see the flow of the discussion.
Yeah. And if it's something you like, just add it to your dashboard.
Yeah. And the text response is really good as well for accessibility as well. Yep.
So really the joy of Golden is to make data fun again, to make it fast, to make it intuitive, to make it something that we would be proud to share with others. And that's really what it's all about. It's not about the number of charts you have. It's not about, the various whiz-bang features. It's how do we help people answer the questions they have as fast as humanly possible? Because data is fun.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive, I have to say. It's very impressive. It is wild to me. I think I've said this in a couple of contexts, like this concept of the intuition of what people need to be doing with their data, and then creating a tool that understands that, basically, right? So if you ask people what they want, you'll get something very different to understanding the intuition behind what they need to do. And I think that, like, your demo of that has really clearly shown like how you've understood that problem in the modern context, in an AI context, because a simple thing you would have thought is we've all seen these AI text boxes, right? And you go into them and that's all you get. And what comes out is what comes out. And I think that's been the mode that most people have understood. But I think, shoot me down if I'm wrong here, what I see in your product is actually the user and the AI can interact with the product, if I can use that sort of paradigm. And there's a common surface that the user can work with to interact with both. So they can interact directly with the asset, or they can interact with the AI, which also knows how to interact with the asset. This sort of trinity, if I call it that.
No, really, I think you got it right. It's about humans and AI working together to augment human potential.
Yeah.
And this is where I think it was interesting when I was looking at the different solutions that exist on the market. Yeah. There were a lot of chat bots for data that were being created that are aimed at replacing the analyst.
Yeah.
And that's not the spirit of what we want to build, what we want to do. We want to empower people. We want people to do their best work, not replace them, but give them superpowers they didn't have before. Yeah. And sometimes, when you look at AI solutions, they do things incredibly well. It's unbelievable what it does. But sometimes you just want to be able to do the work yourself and change what the AI did. Maybe you got it 80% right or 90% right. That's already impressive. But doing the last mile, the last 10, 20%, you need to have that ability to just get it the way you need it. So it's putting you back in control. It's putting you at the center of it with AI as a superpower for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a different mindset.
And it's pretty profound. Like at no point in the demo did you show me a function, right? It was just a prompt. We just did it.
But the functions are there. They're always there. Of course.
So people go to what the slider of autonomy. It's there. The point is that doesn't have to be your only way of interacting with those things. And I guess an interesting question around the experience. I think you really nicely laid out the 4 parts. It was discover, prep, analyze, and then communicate. Yeah,
correct.
Exactly. That's a really interesting path because I think we see in today's, let's say, landscape, there's very, let's say, modular approach where actually you do your semantic modeling over there, you have it exposed over here, and you take your story and you share over there. And I think you've tried to think of the whole experience as one, let's say, timeline. Do you have any sort of thinking on how that works, how that looks when, for example, analysts maybe want to bring, let's say, Databricks into this platform, or they want to bring DBT or import what they've done in DBT? How does that interface with the paradigm you're putting forward?
Very much inspired by my beliefs at Tableau, at Amplitude, at Cognos. It's about choice. If a customer has a semantic model built already, we should be able to leverage it and extend it further to the users. But if they don't, they shouldn't be blocked from starting. Correct. So it's always this and in everything that we do. So if you have Databricks, guess what? You can connect and go. If you have data in the Unity catalog, you'll be able to leverage it and bring that in so it's available.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it means the users are going to be able to be empowered. And then the data teams or IT can see what the users are doing with that data and continue to enrich their models. I think sometimes we have these polarizing debates, A versus B. And I think, no, actually, the two need to work together because we're all working on the same thing, which is data. But we come at it from a different point of view. And my view of it is, how do you empower people to want to use that data, make it so simple that they want to use it, which makes the entire work that the data teams have done even more valuable. Yeah. Right? We don't want to lock it down. We want to bring it to the people so it can have the most value.
Yeah. And another question that I've had a lot of debates over, let's say, is what is the future surface of work? And so if I contextualize this a little bit, so many companies like pick a side. Sometimes they work in Slack, sometimes they work in Teams, sometimes they're in Google Workspace, sometimes they're in Office 365. Work happens in a lot of different places. One of the biggest, let's say, challenges I see with AI is actually it's challenging that paradigm because you've got the, let's say, the big companies like Claude and ChatGPT saying, actually, we'll bring those experiences into our platform. How do you see that sort of challenge with Golden, if that makes sense? I think the suggestion is, here's a browser window. This is where you experience the product. But do you see a world where Golden travels into those sorts of platforms? Or yeah, I'll let you answer.
My two favorite words are yes, and then the second word is and.
Okay.
It shouldn't be an either or. That's
right.
You should let people consume the data in the tools and apps that they want. It's not a fight. It's if they need it there, you should make it available there. So obviously we have to start somewhere. So we're starting with the full experience, because if you can't use our experience, it won't even work anywhere else. So you got to make it great in the first place. Yeah. But of course, and we already have prototypes of this, it works natively in Claude already. Nice. Just with an MCP, you can start asking questions. But all of the magic behind Golden, the suggested visualizations, the auto insights become available. So we're creating essentially this enrichment layer that makes that data travel even further. Mm-hmm. But now when something happens and you have to go discover further, you have a place to go.
Yeah, amazing.
And some users prefer one interface versus the other.
Yeah.
I remember the whole debates when the iPhone came out. It said, all right, PCs are going to go away. We don't need laptops. You're going to do all your work on your phone. We all have a phone and a laptop or a desktop, and we live in a world of and. It's not an or. Yeah. There's some people that are purely mobile, but the majority of us are using different experiences, different everywhere. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing. And so I think now we're very much in the world of, oh my God, this is incredible. It's a new thing, but it'll work in many different places.
Many places. Yep. Perfect. Okay. This is, I've seen this demo, and actually I saw a lot of new things today. So I'll just call out to the audience, like, the distance you've traveled since I last saw the demo is wild.
It's unreal, and you've barely seen I just wrote down what we shipped last week, and it's unreal. Yeah. But I think actually this is the other really amazing thing of this new era is as a builder, I can build so much faster than ever before. Mm-hmm. The 1 time a year, 3 times a year, 4 times a year, that is glacial pace these days.
Yes.
Like the pace of development has accelerated. And I think that's great. It means that you're able to do more, you're able to solve more problems. But as a user, you don't have to wait 10 years for a feature to get finally delivered.
Yeah.
It can get delivered in a matter of hours, days, or weeks.
Yeah.
And that's again, it's empowering. And it's not to say that the previous generation was bad. It was just built in a different way, and now there's a new way of building that is just remarkably different and better, but it means you can move so much faster. And I remember in the Tableau days, we had this incredible ideas forum. It was an amazing way of generating feedback from the community.
Yeah.
But our ability to take that feedback and do something with it was limited by the complexity and the number of developers that we have.
Yeah.
Well, if I can move 10x faster, how quickly could I go through that list? Mm-hmm. That's just, again, I'm just get giddy excited about what we can do for the community.
And you can take on bigger challenges. Like I think one of the sort of, let's say, underlying stories behind a lot of features in analytics have always been the investment required to bring about the innovation to support that feature. So it's not often the feature isn't the challenge, it's the underlying infrastructure to support that feature in a reliable way that can go on. I think just talking to some colleagues who work with AI a lot more frequently and who are building products elsewhere, that's been a common challenge. People are taking on what they would have considered side quests a lot more frequently. And they're freeing up the time to take on much, much bigger sort of conceptual challenges because they've got this little juice, which I think it's amazing. I think it's exciting. I think if I change tack a little bit, and if we step back and maybe just look at the industry you're entering, you mentioned earlier on that like you were seeing things that weren't being solved in the industry. What else would you say is probably like a big challenge for the BI industry in general, probably yourselves included, because it's not, maybe let me rephrase it this way. the pace you can now move at means there's so much more available to you in terms of direction and focus. And I think all BI companies have this shared problem, which is now we can achieve so much. Where do we even start? So how do you focus your team? How do you focus your product? How do you say, no, let's not do that, let's do this, when anything's possible, if I could put it that way?
Anything is possible, which is great. What is different today is what becomes more important are things like what we call product taste or product sense. Right. Do you deeply understand the customer problem? Because you can build anything you want, but if you don't deeply understand it, if you haven't walked in their shoes or felt their pain, it's hard to build the right thing. Correct. And I think that's a difference today. But if we separate out a few things that you said, first, it doesn't matter what tool exists. We still have the same challenges that we've always faced. Data literacy challenges, change management challenges, data governance challenges. Okay. They're still there. So while tools may make it more approachable, we still have to get more people to get comfortable with data. And I think my view with something like Golden is to try to reduce that barrier even more so we can have even more people in this great community that we're part of. But it's changed, right? You have to do things a different way. I know that when I started putting this together, I brought in a couple of people that I know that have used Tableau and Power BI for years. And the hardest part for them was to untrain themselves for how they've done things for 10 years.
Yes.
And saying, is that the right way of doing it? I'm not saying it's the bad way, but there's a different way. And it was, by the way, it's exactly the same in the early days of Tableau when people were coming from business objects and Cognos expecting things a certain way. No, it's a slightly different way. So you have to get comfortable with it's a new way and then be willing to lean in and move forward.
Yeah.
But the other aspect that's happening these days is when you're starting fresh in a post ChatGPT era versus pre, right? Where you're not burdened by decades of technical debt and issues. It's actually quite liberating because now, we're building with the LLM as our silicon. Yeah. And so as new capabilities come alive, we can exploit that really quickly and move faster. Yeah. Whereas in the previous generation of tools, and this is true for a Tableau or Power BI, a Looker, a Metabase, and all these different tools that exist, which there are plenty, it's a big industry. They have a lot of legacy code that is going to be hard to move over. And I think you have to be willing to make big, bold bets to transform because it won't just move forward. And it's really hard. There's companies like Intercom who were growing really fast for a long time and then stagnated. And the only way that they could move forward was to burn the boats and restart. And they reaccelerated because they restarted in an AI native way. Yeah. And that's hard, truly, because you have customers, you have
to bet a lot of culture, history, learned experience, and happy customers as well.
That's right. Absolutely. So we get to start from scratch, which is a benefit. It also means we're going to have to build a lot more things that maybe didn't exist before. But as long as the things we build are delightful, empowering, liberating, and help people move forward, I think that we can build something truly remarkable.
Amazing. And so, as I've said, again, in weeks, you've gone what I would have considered like a quarter's worth of stuff shipped. And that's just the stuff I've seen. There's more I haven't seen, I'm sure. What does a roadmap look like? Because that's also probably a different challenge, right? You're saying we can build anything is possible, which would suggest that you can hit that shit point sooner. So what does the roadmap look like? How does that work? I could put you in a spot
Tim,
there.
You've never changed. Every time I share what we're building, you always want to know what's next. You're never satisfied. Check out what we're doing in the next 12 months. Okay, what's after that? There are many parts of that. The first thing is we have to delight customers. We're going to ship something. There will be bugs, there'll be issues, there'll be feature requests, and we have to deliver on that. And so a lot of that roadmap will come from what the customers tell us. And I think we have to be deeply connected to customers. And that's actually one of the values in the company is there is no separation between customers and developers.
Yeah.
Everybody's accessible. They're all connected. So you have to move forward.
Yeah.
But as if I look at what we're going to be building next, there's some subtle hints in what I showed today. I use the word communicate, not dashboards.
Yes.
So you'll see other ways of communicating. All right, maybe it's through slides, in stories, and documents. You'll see a lot of leverage in the platform. Obviously, we have a concept we call shared connections. So you can build a connection that's leveraged everywhere, but it also includes things like metrics and being able to have curated metrics that land everywhere that you can consume anywhere. There will be things like monitoring agents and workflows, and I hate to use the word catalog because it's an older word. There's a lot of metadata that's being generated in the platform, and how do you leverage that to build knowledge that can be shared? Because the more knowledge there is, the better the environment becomes. So part of the company values is not only no separation between customers and developers, but speed is an attribute.
Yes.
We are going to move fast. We're going to innovate fast for customers. And I think now we have that core possibility of doing that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's exciting. I think that's, if you've used any experience, a really good experience, you like your phone or whatever, I think one of the things you've always appreciated is, when it gets better and software update, improved features, and or saves you battery and or gets faster. Like very simple things, but actually means a lot to experience. If I touch on one thing you talked about there, which was the catalog and metrics, I think I often see clients, especially in the consulting world, deliberate over these two concepts. Maybe not deliberately, but deliberate on them a lot. And one of the opinions I've had for a while is that actually we build too many dashboards. We focus too much on the end state before really grounding ourselves in like the thing that matters. And I put metrics in that category. If you can define a metric, where it goes from there is totally game. That's exciting. That's easy. But if you don't define it, you'll burn a lot of time in the end solution trying to make it right. And in Golden, are you thinking of ways of really trying to get the user to do the work in the right place? Because your interface is very flexible, right? You can go to any part really however you want through the prompt window at any time. And so how do you instill, let's say, this catalog mindset to close the loop? How do you make a user say, actually, before I create this, let's go find what's already there? How do you get them to do it in the prep stage, but not in the analyze stage, right? Because these are the really bad patterns that BI tools of today have instilled in us, right? And how do you break that mold to really make what you're doing sing? Because I think your platform does need that structure to do things consistently well.
Right. That's a great question. And what's my favorite word? And
yes, I'm sorry. I did it the wrong way around. Oh, we're getting there.
So it's an and. Look, I think part of what happens with a lot of these solutions is without governance, you have anarchy. Too much governance and you have zero adoption because it's too limiting for folks. So you have to find that Goldilocks balance between both.
Nearly.
But what I think is actually interesting is being able to harvest the organic development that users do combined with the centralized approaches. And so by that, I mean that if you think you have a table called accounts, right? It could be perfectly curated, great, amazing, we have accounts, but you don't know yet how it's being used. Is it, these are the accounts that are at risk of trading? Are these upsell opportunities? Are these accounts that are up for renewals? Like, it's the same table, but used in different ways. All of that human enrichment, which call it a dashboard, call it whatever asset they create, that becomes knowledge. So what that really means is you're able to start leveraging that and from a centralized point of view, see why are people creating these derivatives?
Yes.
Is it that there was a need that wasn't met? And if there is, then great, let the users define it because they understand their business, and then harvest that out, put it centralized so that others can benefit from it too.
Yeah.
But limiting somebody to do the thing that they need to do won't work. Because if you do that, guess what they're going to do? They're going to do an export to Excel, and they're going to find a way to do it anyways.
Yeah.
So if you can do it in a way that helps you understand what is actually going on and continuously refine, I think you end up in a better state.
Yeah.
So again, the view is do an and, enable people to centrally do it, whether they do it in Golden or they do it in DBT or Snowflake semantic views, it doesn't matter, right? But now they have visibility into how people actually use it. And I think that's key.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good balance. And I think also you'll probably come across, say, customers, I call them clients, who have a very, let's say, opinionated view of where it has to happen, not necessarily where it should happen. That's sometimes a different I often have different views to my clients. I'm not sure that's where it should happen, but fine, we'll just go with what you're suggesting. And I think, supporting that approach will really help and maybe make it easy for them to A/B test. That's something I wish clients did, right? Like, instead of choosing one, actually, let's go with both approaches in 2 different use cases and see which one works, rather than having this sort of top-down approach. And I feel, I can't know this, I haven't used the product, I feel like Golden kind of enables that, if that makes sense.
So the collaboration element of any of these solutions is really important.
Yes.
Because we might be seeing the world differently, and that's okay. But can we communicate it together and debate it together and see where you're coming at it? Oh, you calculated this way because of these conditions. Okay, that makes sense. But have you considered this? Exactly. And that collective knowledge makes us all better.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah. I'm so impressed. I'm amazed how much it's come along. It's really incredible. I'm excited to also use the products. I will be at some point in the future, I'm sure. And I guess, how would people find Golden? It sounds like a really strange question to ask, because for all I've known you, it's been obvious where to go. But how do people find you? How do people get in touch? And
well, here's my phone number. Call me anytime. We're in the early phases right now. You're all getting the first peek at what this product will be, and there's a lot more work to get done. Right. We're starting with a wait list on the website so that people can nominate themselves to want to join in, and we'll be starting to pull people from that wait list. And then product availability will be relatively soon right after.
Right.
But we have a website, goldenanalytics.com. It's really incredible. You can sign up for the wait list, see some videos, but we'll be revealing more over time. And there's definitely a few surprises to come. And one thing that we did is we actually hid some golden tickets inside the product.
Oh, very nice.
So if you do the right combination of keystrokes and movements, you can actually get some golden tickets and open up the waitlist for other people. So hopefully there'll be a fun game that people will be able to play.
Nice. You really have pushed this golden pun to another level. Golden tickets. It's creating golden moments at a golden time.
Exactly. It's the golden era of analytics.
Maybe it's the golden hour, yeah. You wake up at 5 a.m. just to work in the ideal time.
That's right. But Tim, this is all about joy. It's fun. Data
it is, exactly.
Right?
We're laughing about it. So
exactly.
It's a really good way to think of it. Yeah. I should have thought of that as I was laughing away, but it's perfect. So listen.
And you've got a golden hoodie already, so, you're set.
I'll wear that on my way in, although I'm not sure it's welcome, but hey.
Earned it for life.
Yes, I do love it. I love that moment a lot. But I'm excited to use it. I can't wait to try it out. Obviously, once it's more generally available, I'll be making content about it. I think it's really important to explore tools and how they're approaching this. And I think you're definitely the first, let's say, I'm going to call it, I don't know if this is even the right word. You tell me, multimodal tool, because typically a lot of AI tools have said, work in this text box. And then BI tools have said, we'll add a text box to our thing. But no one's really supportive. Well, what if I just want to bring my typical workflow to a modern way of working, like an AI approach? And that's what I mean by multimodal. You can use it whichever mode you want to work with, and it supports both to drive the experience. I'm excited about that. I'm also sure that you will, let's say, trigger some sort of response from the market, the world, the community, just to see what challenges turn up to take you on. Because I think that's healthy, right? I think you saw that
Absolutely.
Coming from Microsoft to Tableau, and Tableau versus Power BI was always a big thing. I think now the game is filled with many more tools. I think even just in the traditional BI space, there's now at least 10 competitors that can turn up to any RFP, take it on. So I'm also excited to see what turns up in the space you're targeting, because I think that is where we're going. And it'd be interesting to see how quickly companies pivot to this sort of direction, which I think it's a great challenge. But
well, I agree. But I'll add that my point of view is I love learning. I love innovation. And it's actually great that there's competition. It's great that there's different companies that are approaching the problem from different points of view. And I think for everybody in this community, just being exposed to what's out there, just like you're just Tim now, but because there's a lot out there for people to look at, learn from, be inspired by, start using. And I think that makes us all better. So having an open mindset is really key. And really understanding what's that company's or that product's point of view of the data space. And it's not that one is right or wrong, they're just different. And where do you lean into its strengths and its differentiators? And that, I think, is part of the joy of building. And I think the more that people keep an open mind that there might be something different, the better it is.
Yeah, 100%.
Myself coming at it from years at Tableau, years at Microsoft, seeing things in a different way, I think it's important for people to not be the things that they tried to be in the past, right?
Yes.
We replaced the report factories to only turn into another report factory.
Yeah.
We got to break that mold again and not get stuck to our old ways and be open to other ways of doing things. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Amazing. Good. I'm excited to see how you take on that challenge. And obviously, I'm hoping you come back. At this rate, you'll need to come back quite often to show us what's next.
What I'm looking forward to is your analyses of our next product announcements, so that you can start reading the tea leaves of where we're going, because you're very good at that. And say, if they connect A and B and C and then turn it this way.
Yeah,
magic.
Exactly. Let me know. I'll be there in your first keynote. There you are. I can't wait. And one of the reasons I did think about my brand deliberately was, hey, actually, we are moving into this sort of multi-tool ecosystem, and it would be dangerous to assume that you can sit behind one direction and just keep going with that. I think people will have to adopt many different ways of working in different parts of the data ecosystem, and Golden is just one of them, but I'm sure there'll be many more. Yeah. Amazing. Listen, thank you. Finally.
Thank you, Tim. I know we made it happen.
It's our first time. It's crazy after knowing each other for how many years. And I should have taken that opportunity sooner, but I'm glad you showcased your product here on the channel for the first time. That's super special to me. Thank you again for sharing that opportunity. And
and keep doing all the great work that you're doing and sharing the love with the community and helping people discover different ways of using data that I think is really important.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thanks, everybody.